Earlier on, the Premier, Oscar Maboyane, had blamed the proliferation of guns as being a contributing factor to what has been causing a number of the mass killings and shootings that we've been seeing. But South Africa has an alarming firearm problem. First of all, what we do know is that 34 people are murdered every day from firearm-related murders. That's 11 more murders per day from the 2022-2023 daily average of 23 per day. An alarming amount of firearm-related murders happen at the barrel of guns that leaked from the hands of state-owned firearms. There are 2.2 million state-owned firearms across 502 state entities in South Africa. The South African Police Services and the South African National Defence Force account for less than 30% of these firearms. How does this then get remedied? Chet Thomas of the IRS, Forensics Investigators, join us to unpack this. Chet, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. The Institute of Security Studies report, where I'm referencing all these figures from, is very detailed on where some of the deficiencies are in the ecosystem of firearms controls and firearms management. But very specifically in their policy brief document, ask for a reconfiguration of the firearms registry. Let's talk about it. What is the Firearms Controls Registry and why has it been ineffective?
Very good evening to you and a very good evening to the viewers. Our firearms legislation underwent a fundamental change at the turn of the millennium. The new Firearms Control Act came into effect in 2000, and between, say, 2000 and 2004, so just over 20 years ago, we saw that people had to reapply for licensing and the register was updated and various necessities were put into place and requisites in respect of obtaining firearm licenses. It became a lot more difficult for members of the public to be able to arm themselves in a legal manner and fashion. And this was good across the board. However, what we saw during that period of time is that a lot of people didn't want to go through the whole rigmarole of having to apply with the new process, and there was a period of time that they could hand in firearms, and there's also been periods of time where there's been amnesties offered by the state where people could hand in firearms that were kept illegally. This is where a great problem arose, because these weapons should have been categorized as being handed in. They should have then been sent to a centralized depot and then later destroyed. And what we found is over the years that this particular process was somehow compromised by bad actors operating within organized crime, together with bad actors from the police force itself. There was a very highly publicized case of a senior police officer from the Vaal Triangle who supplied close on 3,000 weapons that he admitted to supplying to gangsters in the Cape Flats, for which he was convicted. Although the ISS and others have estimated that it was closer to most probably 9,000 weapons that he had illicitly taken control of and given across to gangsters. We then, of course, had the infamous Norwood case where police were following up on forensics on a firearm and found that that firearm had actually been booked into Norwood and was meant to have been destroyed, and they subsequently found that close on 200 firearms that should have been taken from Norwood for destruction had somehow found themselves back on the street. So when we talk about a registry, we have a registry in place. The police are very good with their registry, and the Firearms Control Division within SABC are very adept at what they are doing and are very capable at what they're doing. Our greatest concern, of course, is the proliferation of firearms from illicit means and from areas that we wouldn't normally see firearms coming from, such as from the state, but of course also from old arms caches and from across the border.
Yeah, there's a problem with the underreporting of lost and stolen firearms, both from the hands of private citizens who are registered to have firearms, as well as from the state with a cache of 2.2 million firearms. Are there sanctions, by the way, criminal sanctions, for the failure to report a stolen or lost firearm?
Very, very definitely. In terms of the Firearms Control Act of 2000, it's a criminal offence not to report the loss or the theft of a firearm within a specified period of time. I think what comes as a great surprise to the public is the amount of public entities, in other words, state-owned entities or state-run departments that are actually in possession of firearms. We're talking close on 2.2 million firearms. And this is where they say the underreporting is coming from. They said that the reporting from SABC has been there. It's been noted in crime statistics. They said with the SANDF, They must be have an internal reporting mechanism. They also have their own internal investigative entity, which is the South African military police, which falls under the Defence Force. But it's the other departments that they seem to be concerned about. And these could include correctional services, they could include metropolitan police departments, they could include national, provincial and local traffic departments. And therein lies a massive problem, because there needs to be further oversight. Now, when one looks at the oversight responsibility, you have a division within the police that goes all the way down to localized police stations called FLASH, which stands for firearms, liquor and second-hand goods. And that unit normally has within it a DFO, a dedicated firearms officer. That person has a lot on their shoulders in respect of the inspection of firearms that are held by gun shops, that are held by security companies in conjunction with CIRA, and of course held by civilians in their personal capacity. The concern comes in is who is inspecting the armories of the metropolitan police, the municipal police, and therein lies a grave concern.
Yeah, Chad, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights. I really do appreciate it. Chad Thomas is with IRS Forensics Investigators.